Hello there, my name is Sixo, but more on that later because it's time to check out the latest offering from Robosen, and you know what that means.
I am Megatron, leader of the Decepticons!
Yes, despite only just being unveiled, we have for today an early look at the upcoming fully interactive take on the iconic leader of the Decepticons, the one and only maniacal Megatron. I've been tremendously excited ever since I first clapped eyes on it, so I cannot wait to go through everything this super detailed figure can do, and check out how it compares to previous Robosen fare. Before we get into the detail, it's worth acknowledging that yes, it's a somewhat stylized take on the classic iteration of the character, blending more than a few influences from the last 40 years of Transformers to create something which is immediately identifiable, but has its own distinct spin at the same time. One thing I've always enjoyed about Megatron is that unlike his nemesis Optimus Prime, who largely fits a strict design template and all too commonly turns into a red truck, the Decepticon leader is constantly reinvented for every new era of the franchise. I'm sure his gun mode is still an inherent part of the character's identity in the minds of many, despite endless different disguises for the character in the years since. Although in this case, it's no surprise that Robosen has forgone the idea of their figure becoming a giant working firearm of any kind. Instead, this tyrant turns into a tank, which is the most common go-to alternative for Megatron modes these days, but also makes a lot of sense when you witness the interactivity that Robosen has crafted here, as we'll see. And hey, he may not be a gun, but he can still shoot. The other thing I want to acknowledge is that I'm well aware people have strong opinions on Robosen's Transformers output. If anything, their worth as interactive transformable playthings and their positioning amongst the sea of robots in disguise retail offerings has been talked to death already, so I don't plan on recovering old ground today. I'll link below to my previous videos, including my Optimus Prime review where I get into all of that a lot more, as well as the Triple Takeover podcast episode in which we discussed Robosen's offering and the reactions to it in quite some depth. Suffice it to say, if you're at least a little bit curious, I'd encourage you to approach this product with an open mind, because there's really a lot to admire about it, and if it's not too on the nose to say, it might just prove to be more than meets the eye. Oh, and the final thing that absolutely should be clarified is that this is an early review sample and not the finished product. Anyway, Megatron arrives in this impressively sized box, which makes quite the entrance and stacks up beautifully next to the flagship Optimus Prime equivalent. Inside the box is a hard transportation case, which unlocks and flips open to reveal the Decepticon leader lying in wait in his tank form. There's then a hidden panel which contains all of the various accessories and accompaniments, including the instructions and power cable, as well as a neat little 40th anniversary collector's coin for those that like that kind of thing. In terms of weapons, you then have a very striking sword, which has a built-in light-up gimmick, although I suspect the batteries may need changing in my copy, and a very swooshable articulated flail weapon, which my son has already had quite a bit of fun with. Finally, there's a set of missiles for the tank turret, alongside a fairly handy little paper target for shooting practice.
I fear the wounds are fatal.
Right out of the box, the tank mode looks incredible. Even without the power on, it's very imposing, not to mention super chunky, chock full of lovely moulded detail, and just overall a hugely satisfying take on this version of Megatron's alternate form. For now, he's looking a little shy and in need of encouragement, so perhaps it's time to turn him on using a very subtly hidden little button, at which point he springs to life and declares,
I am Megatron, leader of the Decepticons.
Yes, you're not mistaken, those are the unforgettable tones of legendary voice actor Frank Welker, who has portrayed Megatron on and off since 1984, and here returns to revive many of the character's classic phrases, as we'll see. With the power on, we can check out the various purple lights all over the figure, which look superb, and I think really add something special in terms of its presence. To my mind, it's a major advantage of this being an original design over trying to slavishly recreate an already existing vehicle form, as Robosen can factor in these little flourishes from the off. The lights appear in all kinds of unusual places, such as tiny stripes down the sides or along the tank barrel, as well as some eye-catching examples at the rear. Then it's worth talking about the heft of this thing, because it is heavy, clocking in at just under an almighty 4 kilograms overall, which is well over 1 kg heavier than the equivalent size Robosen Optimus Prime. That's a lot of beef. It's also notable how much quieter it is than Optimus, which by comparison emits a constant background mechanical white noise hum when in operation. It's funny to say because I never really noticed this before, but Megatron is so surprisingly silent, yet deadly, that you could genuinely forget you even have it turned on in the first place. It's not the only sign of Robosen evolving and finessing their designs, because again, this thing is loaded with beautiful detailing and moulded touches all over, all of which really helps to sell the realism of the vehicle form and allows it to look like one of the most impressive Megatron tank modes to date. It's also worth saying how cohesive it is, with no major signs of visual compromise from any angle, nor any obvious evidence that it can fold up and transform at all. This could very well be a high-end remote-controlled tank of some kind. That's aided by the choice of materials on offer, with exceptionally welcome rubber treads wrapped around individually moving wheels. Nice touch. All in all, it looks majorly impressive to my eye, and seems a very fitting realisation of the Decepticon leader. Stylistically, it feels in keeping with the 2015 Combiner Wars effort to some degree, though obviously sporting a darker palette and perhaps a bit more of a G1 meets real-world twist to it all. It also stacks up well next to previous Robosen efforts, coming off as suitably imposing versus the flagship Optimus Prime, and of course even more so when placed opposite the smaller Elite version. Apparently Robosen have no current concrete plans to produce Megatron in two sizes as well, but honestly both these pairings work in different ways depending on your preference. Obviously the Decepticon leader is no match for Bumblebee in this form, but that aside, there's little doubt that this is one of the company's most impressive looking alternate modes to date, even giving the almighty Grimlock a definite run for his money in terms of visual appeal. And although Big Grim admittedly has invested when it comes to interactivity in these forms by the nature of being a walking, talking dinosaur, it's only fair to say that Megatron is no slouch in the fun department, rocking plenty of features on offer. For starters, you can get going with the voice commands, calling the figure to attention with a simple shout of "Hey Megatron," or as many Decepticons may prefer, "All hail Megatron."
What's wrong?
You can then follow up with the specific command you'd like him to undertake.
Open fire.
The voice commands also allow you to drive Megatron round, but honestly, I think it's far more fun to do so using the accompanying Bluetooth app, which by quickly pairing with the figure, unlocks a range of features far beyond what you can achieve just by shouting. The remote control section includes a very easy to use joystick, which means you can pilot the tank to your heart's content. He can also roll backwards, and even has a rather wicked turning circle, all of which gives you plenty of control when driving him around your house, even if he's not the swiftest tyrant out there. Naturally, you can also use the app to control the firing mechanism, with more fun to be had by adding the accompanying missiles into the mix, after which you can fire them across the room to your heart's content. Really, the whole experience is pretty delightful, and offers just about everything you could want from an interactive tank form, short of a rotating turret, although it's also understandable why this wasn't factored in, given the inherent transformation. Speaking of which, it's surely time to get this guy doing what Transformers do best, by using a simple voice command.
Hey Megatron.
What's wrong?
Transform.
For our third transforming Robosen design, I can only say, first and foremost, that Megatron is nothing shy of breathtaking to witness up close.
I am Megatron, leader of the Decepticons.
There was obviously a novelty factor with seeing Optimus Prime going through the motions, as it was the first on offer. And as I've already acknowledged, Grimlock was in turn a distinct step up from that, boasting a greater amount of moving parts and added complexity, not to mention some extra polish to the proceedings as well. But dare I say, Megatron looks to rival that impressive showing, if not wholly surpass it in many regards, proving to be a total showstopper that you will want to convert between modes again and again, just to try and wrap your head around how awesome it all is. I think a sizable part of that is because, as incredible as they are, both Optimus and Grimlock's transformations were sort of expected, flipping up and unfolding in a manner largely akin to smaller toys we've already experienced of those characters. By comparison, Megatron in motion feels like nothing I've ever quite seen before, with unparalleled levels of intricate detail worked in along the way. Bonus points have to be given to the rapid flip of the Decepticon symbol on the chest plate, or the way in which the robot head swiftly rotates round to the correct position, to say nothing of the movement of the tank turret as it shrinks down and repositions as the iconic fusion cannon on Megatron's arm. Yet it all remains exceptionally fluid too, to the point where it feels less like a mechanical model going through the motions and more akin to how an actual Transformer would undertake the process on screen. All of which is to say that this is bloody impressive stuff, and a sure sign that Robosen is not resting on its laurels. It's hard not to be equally struck by just what a handsome presence Megatron boasts in his humanoid form, as he now stands before you ready for action and looking really rather magnificent. First thing to say is the design on offer feels very classic G1 in its way, albeit with a few obvious stylistic twists thrown in. Taking into account the overall silhouette and the sizable tank tread backpack, it's hard not to be reminded of the Siege interpretation of the character, although the slightly more streamlined proportions and some of the detailing again put me in mind of the Combiner Wars release somehow. Either way, to me this is pretty spectacular, with loads of amazing attention to detail no matter where you look over the whole body. The face sculpt is all but perfect, instantly capturing the essence of the mighty Megatron and making him feel alive thanks to those piercing red optics. It's a similar story on the abdomen section, which is sporting all the necessary classic detail, but now with some eye-catching light-up features to really draw your eye. I especially love this little display of 4 lights, which doubles as a battery indicator and will wear down over time until he needs charging again. So subtle, but so effective. The fusion cannon looks pretty ferocious too, and although it's far from a one-to-one with the original design of the same weapon, I like how it's so stylishly formed out of the tank barrel to great effect here. And the purple lighting at the end is just the icing on the cake. Some are bound to quibble the sizable backpack, but honestly it really does not bother me one bit, and considering everything else the design goes through to achieve such an otherwise clean-looking robot form, I think it's more than acceptable. And if anything, it kinda adds to his menacing presence somehow. Elsewhere, I'm so impressed with how stuff like the rear tank treads tuck away, as I actually had to go looking for them on the back of the legs after I genuinely couldn't work out where they'd gone for a hot second there. All in, I think it's an exceptionally handsome robot form, and squares off brilliantly opposite his nemesis, Optimus Prime. It's no exaggeration to say that Megatron feels like a more evolved and finessed overall product, no doubt thanks to the later development time, but still the two of them work so well together, making for an almighty pairing, all things considered. That's similarly true with the smaller Elite model of Optimus, which makes his Decepticon rival appear even more imposing than he already did, though that might be something that many fans will prefer. In truth, there's no real definitive scale going on between all of Robosen's Transformers catalogue thus far, but no matter, they still look pretty fab when lined up, assuming you can ever actually afford to have more than one of them in your home, that is. Also, speaking of scale, I feel it's necessary to clarify how large these things are, because it's certainly an aspect of their design which is likely to be a surprise. They are huge. Megatron here stands no less than 19 inches tall, and entirely overshadows most of what you're likely to have in your typical Transformers collection, bar some of the biggest Titan releases and the like. Coming on to functionality, the other great thing here is that although Megatron does the all too familiar shutdown pose as soon as you cut the power, squatting into a less than flattering position for stability without the aid of the active motors, for the first time you are also able to toggle an option in the accompanying app, which forces him to stand tall and proud for a depowered display should you prefer, with the rather obvious caveat that you'll need to be extra careful not to knock him over in this unassisted state. Once you have him active again, it's time to get to grips with those weapons, both of which feature a small rotating stop on the end of the hilt that must be removed before sliding the handle into Megatron's hand, and then repositioned for security. The sword belongs in the left palm and the flail in the other, leaving him looking more than ready for combat once you're done. The mace has a rubbery-like finish to it, so although it's about to be swished around quite a bit, at least you know it hopefully won't do too much damage. Anyway, it's at this point when we get to the many voice commands on offer for the robot mode, with a whole host of pre-programmed options right out the box, and more which can be accessed via the app. Many of these make use of the weapons as well, so as soon as you're ready to go, you just call out, "Hey Megatron."
What's wrong?
"Unicron."
I belong to nobody. Nobody summons Megatron. Try and stop me, Prime. Nothing can stop me now. Not even you. Optimus Prime. I'll crush you with my bare hands. Do as I command. Fire! Show no mercy. Peace through tyranny! droids to a picnic, Starscream. How can you pretend to lead the Decepticons?
Honestly, I could keep a video of these various actions going for quite some time, given how much functionality is available here. But needless to say, it's all thoroughly entertaining, and especially so with Frank Welker's amazing audio talent to back it up. My son and I have had great fun cycling through the various commands, with Megatron's rather snide vocal delivery never failing to make us laugh along the way. I was initially a little nervous that some bits of the figure were going to collide with one another, such as the rear of the cannon and how it comes so close to Megatron's head and backpack, but it seems as though the precision engineering has it all taken into account, which is most impressive to witness. You can also create sequences using the voice customization option, which allows you to add any number of commands in a continuous string before asking the robot to undertake the whole lot together. Alternatively, this is the first Robosen Transformers product to feature touch interaction too, with several hotspots in various places over the figure that cause Megatron to react when poked or prodded.
Dummies! I'll rip out your optics.
Some of them in a rather suggestive fashion.
I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
That's not all though, because loading up the Bluetooth app unlocks a whole extra world of functionality. Much as on the tank form, you can have Megatron walk around using the joystick, which works really well even if it is rather bizarrely entertaining to see him doing his little squat and trot. Then there are several buttons which recreate his 3 main weapon attacks in this mode. Then you can head to the Action Center, which contains all of the various pre-programmed sequences well beyond anything Megatron can do by voice command alone. You simply go through to the menu and select the sequence and you're away. You can also get a bit of dual robot interaction going by adding Optimus Prime to the mix and then entering the mini theatre mode, whereby both figures are synced with the app at once, allowing you to kick off an extended sequence of them going at it.
Prime. One shall stand, one shall fall. Such heroic nonsense. We will never forsake this planet or its people. No! I'll crush you with my bare hands. Fire now! No more Optimus Prime! Grant me mercy, I beg of you. Corruption is never a path to freedom. Fools! Fall! I would have waited an eternity for this. It's over, Prime! We will never give up. We will never surrender.
Really though, the true meat and potatoes comes from the Create menu, where you're able to build your own custom sequences using one of 2 approaches. First up is the manual option, whereby you physically manipulate the figure itself and then sync those actions with the app step by step to build your sequence. To begin, you select which joints should be unlocked and therefore made available to move. Once done, you can then adjust those parts on the figure in the manner you wish for the first part of your sequence, before coming back to sync that movement in the app and then saving it and moving on. Simply continue in this manner by manipulating the unlocked joints and syncing and saving as you go to build up an extended sequence, at which point you can play it back and continue to edit it further. What's even better is the ability to add in an amazing array of pre-recorded sounds from the audio menu, where you'll firstly find plenty of music to make you feel nostalgic for the delights of the 80s Transformers cartoon. As well as an unprecedented library of Frank Welker dialogue, including plenty of newly recorded takes on old favourite lines from decades ago.
Nobody summons Megatron. Laserbeak, where are your manners? Our guest needs a seat. Excellent. We'll suck this planet Earth dry. Optimus Prime. Such heroic nonsense. nonsense.
The sheer amount of audio available is really quite something, showing just another way these Robosen releases continue to be true love letters to the franchise that inspired them. Anyway, next we come to the second option for building your own sequences, with the block-based approach, whereby you program the actions the robot will undertake using a drag and drop menu in the app itself. This is a little more complicated to get your head around, but can be extremely fun and rewarding with a bit of practice. It starts by specifying that you want Megatron to perform an action, and then adding the exact joint you wish to move as part of it, at which point the menu will confirm where this is on the figure. You can then set the angle for the joint to move, and indeed the speed it should happen, by adding many more actions with different joints and incorporating loops into the mix. You're able to build up some amazingly complex sequences, again also involving dialogue and music from the audio library as before. As I said, this menu is arguably the more complicated option of the two, and definitely requires a bit of patience and practice before getting the kind of results you might wish for. But I also maintain that these additional controls represent the real sense of long-lasting engagement Robosen's products have to offer. The voice commands will always be the bit that attracts attention, but to me, the ability to get in under the bonnet and have a go at building your own programming is where the true value lies. Plus, in a few more years, it'll be a great way to teach my boy about the basics of coding, so anything that inspires such creative and reasoned thinking cannot be bad at all. For now though, he's just happy that the thing makes loud noises and shoots stuff, so it works on multiple levels, I guess.
What do you think then? Is he fun?
Oh, love it. Especially the spiky ball and the sword.
Oh yeah? Is that the good fun?
Yeah, the good one.
So is he cooler than Optimus Prime, or do you think this is not as good, or what?
Better.
Better?
Yeah.
Better than Grimlock?
Yeah, the best one.
The best one? Nice.
So there you have it. My 6-year-old is super impressed, and I am too. I've no doubt it won't be for everyone, as any mad expensive product of this kind is bound to cause a bit of debate by its very nature. Still, having been given the chance to take a look at Megatron, I can at least say that Robosen are on fine form yet again, providing a product which is a real sign of affection for the brand we all know and love, and packing in a lot of fun along the way. One shall stand, and one shall toot. Now, today's review is brought to you by TF Source. I'll throw a link to their site in the video description below, where you can check them out for all your Transformers and third-party needs. And if you've enjoyed this video, then you'll also find links to the various ways that you can support me, including my Patreon, Redbubble and Ko-Fi, all of which is greatly appreciated and makes a huge difference for the continued running of this channel. Finally, I'd love it if you could drop me a like for today's video, please, and don't forget to let me know your thoughts on this figure. Do you like what you see of Robosen Megatron, or not so sure? Otherwise, that's it from me, so thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day. TTFN.